In the land of Greece, surrounded by mountains and rivers, there was a city unlike any other, a place where weakness was hunted down and fear was turned into strength. This was Sparta, the city that would one day defy the greatest empire the world had ever known. Long before it became legend, Sparta was just a small Dorian settlement, a fragile seed in a dangerous land, surrounded by enemies, outnumbered by slaves known as helots. The Spartans learned early that survival demanded more than courage. It demanded perfection. At the age of 7, Spartan boys were torn from their mothers and cast into the agoge, the state's brutal training ground. There, they learned to fight, to endure hunger, and to never show pain. To hesitate was weakness. To complain was disgrace. To die well was honor. Every Spartan lived by one rule: to serve the state above self. Their laws, carved by the legendary Lycurgus, demanded simplicity, loyalty, and silence. Gold was banned, luxury forbidden. Their speech was sharp, their minds sharper. They spoke less and meant more. But behind every warrior stood a Spartan woman, fearless, proud, and unbroken. They told their husbands, "Come back with your shield," or "On it." They were not the weeping widows of other lands. They raised sons to serve the city, and they did it with pride. Sparta's strength was not just in its men, but in the hearts of its women. Years of peace hardened Sparta, but beyond the mountains, a shadow was stirring. From the east came whispers of an empire vast as the sea, led by kings who bowed to no one. Their name was Persia, and soon the thunder of their march would echo across the world.
While Sparta forged warriors in silence, another power rose in splendor. To the far east, where golden palaces kissed the horizon, an empire vast as the stars had united the world under one crown: Persia. It was not built in haste. It was built to last forever. Under King Darius the Great, Persia became the most powerful empire the world had ever known. Stretching from India to Egypt, it was a realm of countless nations, bound by one law, one system, one vision. To the Persians, order was divine. Darius believed kings ruled by the will of the gods, and resistance was blasphemy. Persia's soldiers were not mere men, they were legends. At the heart of its army stood the immortals, 10,000 elite warriors, their numbers never diminishing. For every man who fell, another rose instantly to take his place. Yet Persia was not built only on war. It was built on wisdom, administration, and faith. Roads stretched thousands of miles. Messengers crossed deserts faster than the wind. Art, science, and language flourished beneath the king's seal. But greatness, once achieved, breeds ambition. And ambition hungers for conquest. In the western fringes of Persia, Greek colonies known as Ionia rose against their masters. They burned cities, defied tribute, and cried for freedom. Athens, far away, sent ships to aid them, daring to challenge the empire. Darius swore vengeance. "Remember the Athenians," he ordered. And from that day the fate of Greece was sealed. When Darius died, his son Xerxes inherited not only the crown, but his father's vengeance. He gathered a force so vast that it shook the earth. Men from 40 nations stood beneath his banners. The sea itself could barely hold his ships. The age of empires was about to clash with the spirit of freedom. Across the Hellespont, the greatest army ever assembled began its march. The bridges groaned beneath their weight. The sky darkened with sails. Xerxes believed the gods themselves had granted him dominion over the world. But in the shadows of the mountains ahead, 300 men were waiting. As the Persian tide moved west, the cities of Greece prepared for war. Some trembled, some prayed. But in Sparta, they sharpened their spears and waited for destiny.
The storm had come. The greatest army the world had ever seen swept across the land. A tide of men, beasts, and steel. But in the narrow pass called Thermopylae, a few stood in their path. They were not the biggest army, not the richest, but they were Spartans, and they knew that freedom was worth dying for. King Leonidas was chosen by fate and duty. When the call came to defend Greece, he did not wait for comfort or counsel. He chose 300, not the strongest, but the fathers of sons, so that their names would live on. They knew they would not return, yet not one man turned away. Through mountain and sea, the 300 marched, not with fear, but with song. To them, death in service of Sparta was not tragedy, it was triumph. Villagers watched as they passed. Iron men with hearts of fire. Behind their leader, Leonidas, they carried no illusions, only faith and the will to fight. Thermopylae, the hot gates, a narrow throat of land where numbers meant nothing. Leonidas had chosen it well. Here, the Persian millions could not surround them. Here, discipline would triumph over chaos. The Spartans took their stand, shoulder to shoulder, shield to shield, and waited for the storm. Then came the roar of Persia. Thousands charged the narrow gate and broke like waves on rock. Spears shattered. Arrows fell like rain. But the line held. The Spartans fought not as men, but as one living wall of bronze and fury. Xerxes unleashed his elite, the immortals, 10,000 warriors bred for conquest, but even they could not break the line. The Spartans fought with rhythm, every strike a lesson in control, every movement a symphony of courage. But courage was not the only force at Thermopylae. Greed crept in through the shadows. A traitor named Ephialtes revealed a secret path through the mountains, the key to surrounding the Spartans. Honor had found its match in betrayal. Surrounded on all sides, Leonidas dismissed his allies. The Spartans stood alone, no fear, no retreat. They fought until their spears broke, until their swords shattered, until they stood barehanded before an empire. Their courage became legend, their deaths immortality. When the battle ended, the pass belonged to Persia, but the world belonged to the story of the 300. In their death, they awakened a nation. In their sacrifice, they lit a flame that tyranny could never extinguish. For courage does not end when breath stops. It echoes across eternity. The story of Thermopylae reminds us that courage never dies. It only passes from one generation to the next. If this story inspired you, give this video a like. It helps us carry the torch and keep creating more timeless stories for you. Subscribe to our channel and join us on this journey of courage, history, and wisdom. And in the comments below, tell us, what great moment in history would you like us to bring to life next?